Weirdos, I'm Felicia and I like scary movies, and today we're talking about a movie that isn't technically categorized under horror but has a whole lot of blood. We're talking about Spontaneous. This is from writer-director Brian Duffield, who brought us The Babysitter and also Underwater. This movie stars Katherine Langford as Mara and Charlie Plummer as Dylan, and here is a little bit of plot for you. A high school senior named Mara meets the boy of her dreams just when a pandemic, yes, you heard that right, of her fellow students spontaneously combusting / exploding break comedy, or like a teen rom-com. That's what I was going into. So I snuggled up on my couch on a Saturday afternoon, assuming I was gonna watch something light and funny about exploding teenagers. And then I actually spent my Saturday afternoon lying on my couch crying about a movie about exploding teenagers. It was very confusing, you see. Instead of doing what I typically do and say my likes and my dislikes, which I'm sure will come up, I just want to talk about what this movie meant to me and why I think it hit such a chord in my heart that just made me feel way more feelings than I was ready to feel. So first of all, it's a movie that I think was filmed in like 2018 or so, and it's about a pandemic. So that's already a little bit crazy. And the stuff that the kids go through, you know, they're being isolated and the government trying to find a vaccine to stop the children from exploding. So that's you know, one layer of it. Another layer that actually, it's funny because when I started watching it, there is this first scene of the first kid exploding, and it happens inside the high school. And Travis was kind of walking through and he saw this. He was like, oh God, I can't watch blood and kids running in a high school because we have such an epidemic of school shootings here in America. And it's funny because when he said that, I sort of started realizing why I was feeling so uncomfortable with something that I would typically think was funny, like when I'm thinking about Scanners or other exploding body movies. Like, it's the idea of spontaneously combusting has a little bit of humor in it for some reason, at least for me. But in this, I was like feeling very uncomfortable, and I was like, oh, right, because that is such a reality here of kids running and screaming in a school, and it's such a trauma that is going on in the last, you know, however many years, and it was unsettling in that way. And then when I started to really understand what I at least think Brian Duffield was saying with this movie, it really hit me. It got me thinking a lot about, I'm just gonna go off here, it got me thinking a lot about Generation Z, Gen Z. I'm a millennial. I was born in 1992, but the generation coming up right behind me, and just how different their childhoods were. A lot of them were born post 9/11. They have dealt with like huge economic recessions in their early childhood. They have dealt with, as I already said, this epidemic of school shootings and being potentially scared to go to school, the place where they're supposed to feel safe. They have dealt with an administration of Donald Trump that makes people feel like if you're not a white cis man, you are lesser than. A world in which our democracy is being questioned. And then even with all that, now here comes the coronavirus, where now they're not even allowed to go to school. And thinking about the amount of people in Gen Z that have lost someone close to them through one of these, some kind of these events throughout their lives, and just how they're going to deal with the trauma of all that, and how so much of their childhood and growing up years and formative years are traumatic. I mean, I'm sorry if this is getting a little heavy and deep right now, but I mean, I grew up in the 90s, and we have such a nostalgic culture. Look, I'm even wearing this freaking necklace. We have such a nostalgia in our culture for the 90s, where there was, and of course every generation has their problems and whatever, but there was a lot of optimism in America, and there was a lot of yeah, just like hope. Like, you really had a lot of hope. And it was also a very prosperous time in America. And so we kind of grew up with that. And now the kids growing up now have this potential for this really like nihilistic attitude about the world, which I think is represented in this movie so well. Just this idea of like, nothing matters because I could be dead tomorrow. Like that. that literal like thought. And of course that's true for all of us. Like no one knows when they're gonna die. But for Gen Z, it's just been so much more literal and soon. The potential for that to be soon is so much more. And it just, I can't imagine how terrifying that is. And so in this movie, now I'm getting back to the movie, we have this character of Mara who is such a cool young teenager, just awesome. I love Katherine Langford. I think she's such a wonderful actress. You see this girl that is so funny and lively and like, sure, has issues and whatever, we all do, and then has to go through this period of all of her friends literally exploding and dying, and her assuming she's going to be going soon too. And that the guy that she's now fallen in love with could combust at any moment. And then how she has to deal with that and how one chooses to live their life when the idea that they could die any moment becomes like a ticking time bomb. And I just thought they showed this so beautifully. There's especially the last third of the movie for me, because the first, hour or so, even though it's some dark moments and some things that feel unsettling, it's a lot of fun too. It's a lot of comedy. It's a lot of funny teenagers doing weird things. It's, it's light in a lot of ways. And then you have this like dark stuff coming in, and then the last half of the movie, it's so bleak and depressing. And it just really impacted me emotionally. It just really hit a chord with me I did not expect. And I've always loved like young adult fiction, and since I was a young adult, and like I love teenage TV shows, I love CW stuff, I love that stuff. And this one for me it just put me kind of in the shoes of someone that's like a teenager right now, and how traumatic and difficult it must be. And also how it's been all they've ever known. And that is so dark to me as well, because it's like they almost don't know that there was a different way to be, or a different way to live, or a different way to look at the world. And I know in every way I'm generalizing so hardcore right now. Every, Generation Z has a different outlook on the world and has their own experiences, shared and not. And so I totally get that, but it just really gave me a different perspective and put me in the shoes of that generation for the length of a movie. And I was so moved by it. I really was. It kind of destroyed me in a way. And so I would say, do I recommend this movie? Yeah. What did I not like about this movie? At first I thought it was, some of the dialogue was maybe a little lame, like a little like cheesy, I guess, in a simple term. But then I didn't care, because when things got so dark, I was like, oh God, I just want the fun and the cheese. Like I just want something silly to happen. Like this pain is like too difficult. I don't know. It was a heavy, impactful movie for me. So I hope you guys will check it out. I'll link the Amazon link down below for you. You know what this movie kind of reminded me of? Or at least the relationship between Mara and Dylan, which is so beautiful and young and like full of heart. Like the relationship between those two characters is just amazing. But it reminded me of the 1991 film My Girl. Has anyone seen that? And that's such a wrong comparison, but also such a right comparison for this movie for me, because the nature of their relationship is so pure and beautiful, and then the way life and tragedy comes through their lives is just so heart-wrenching. So it kind of reminded me of that a little bit, even though they're very, very different movies. And I think that's it. I hope you'll check this movie out and let me know what you think. But I'm gonna hop off of here, because now I'm thinking about the movie again and getting all sad again. But if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a nice screen. Bye.